Let's talk to Daniel Rubenstein now, former advisor to Benjamin Netanyahu. Daniel, very good morning to you.
Good morning to you.
Interesting to see Donald Trump in the Middle East today. He just landed in Saudi Arabia. He's not, I think, visiting Israel on this trip, and he's not attempting, I don't believe, to see Benjamin Netanyahu. Do you hope that he might have something to say, though, about the hostage situation?
I think he will have something to say about the hostage situation. We just saw one hostage come home yesterday, thanks to his diplomacy.
Yeah.
Trump said before he became president that there would be all hell to pay if Hamas did not return the hostages by the time he took office. Hamas has not returned all of the hostages, and Trump has been in office since January. Both the United States and Israel are giving extra time for a diplomatic solution to the hostage crisis, which has gone on for a year and a half, where Hamas remains the government of Gaza, and Hamas continues to hold 58 hostages, both alive and dead, in Gaza. We want to see them all home and Hamas out of power.
Absolutely. And in terms of what's going on currently in Gaza, it was announced just a few days back that the Israeli policy was going to change, if you like, and they were going to go and occupy Gaza. What's going on with that?
Well, since we just saw a hostage come out yesterday, this military operation has been delayed, and I think it will be delayed until President Trump leaves the region after his conversations with Qatari and Saudi and Emirati leaders. We need to wait and see what the President of the United States can achieve after his meetings with these leaders, because we don't want this extended military operation to be necessary to remove Hamas from power. But if Hamas is not going to budge, if Hamas is going to continue holding hostages, then we should expect to see increased military action in Gaza.
Yeah. And in terms of the operation, if it was to go ahead, what would be the time frame for something like that, would you say?
There is no time frame. The time frame is based on the goals that need to be achieved with the fewest Israeli casualties possible and also the fewest Palestinian casualties possible. The United States and Israel are also in intense conversations now about how to deliver humanitarian aid to Palestinian civilians who were caught between Hamas on the one side and the Israeli military on the other. In the past, Israel sent in so much food and supplies into Gaza that was, of course, intercepted by the Hamas government. Hamas would jack up the prices and use the revenue from the sales of this food and supplies to pay its fighters, to pay the people holding the hostages, and to prolong the war. So we're trying to find ways to shorten this war, and that would include increased military pressure on Hamas and less access to supplies for Hamas.
Yes, you do hear an awful lot, don't you, in certain sections of the media about, you know, aid not getting through or aid being stopped by Israel from getting through, which is often not the case, is it? I mean, tell us a bit about how that particular sort of propaganda tool works.
Well, for many, many months, Israel facilitated the transfer of vast amounts of food and supplies into Gaza, enough to last the people of Gaza for a very long time. Now, this was many months ago, which means the supplies are running low, which puts us in a dilemma. We do not want to see innocent civilians suffer, but we do not want to see Hamas make money and control the economy in Gaza that it can use to prolong the war that keeps us in the exact same situation forever. So Israel decided it's not going to facilitate massive amounts of aid into Gaza that are delivered by these UN agencies that have been compromised by Hamas. We need a different mechanism, and that's what the United States and Israel are working on, to establish zones in Gaza where civilians can come get food and supplies and keep it out of the hands of Hamas as much as possible.
Yeah. Is that even possible to do, though?
Time will tell. It needs to be tried. There needs to be an effort, but we're dealing with a multi-track, multi-front war. It's not just what's going on in Gaza. We want to remove Hamas from power, which is very difficult, and achieve the return of the hostages at the same time. And in addition, we're fighting a 7 or 8 front war against the Iranian regime and its proxies. So there are many calculations taking place at the same time, which is why President Trump's visit to the region is very relevant, because U.S. diplomacy can and will make a difference. We want not the U.S. to care about what's going on here, but the people of Europe, of the UK, to finally understand that Hamas cannot remain in power.
Yeah, and we saw recently, a few weeks back at least, some demonstrations actually in Gaza against Hamas. And those people were very brave for doing so. Many of them were killed because of that, in fact. Is that still the feeling of many of the people in Gaza? Are there people demonstrating anymore, or has that been kind of silent?
I have not seen recent images of demonstrations in Gaza. I hope that many people in Gaza will decide that this war has been an enormous mistake and allowing Hamas to remain in power has been an enormous mistake. But as we can see, Hamas is extremely well armed. It remains the government of many parts of Gaza. And if the Israeli military is having trouble after a year and a half of removing the Hamas regime in power, I can only imagine what it's like to be an unarmed Palestinian civilian in Gaza who wants to remove Hamas from power. It's very difficult. Hamas is determined to remain in power and continue its war to fight Israel until Israel is destroyed.
Yeah, I'm sure. Great to speak to you, Daniel. Thank you very much indeed. Daniel Rubenstein, former advisor to Benjamin Netanyahu, filling us in on what's going on with those aid convoys and also with Donald Trump's visit to Saudi Arabia, which will hopefully have some benefit to those Israeli hostages who are still being held.